Welcome to the Biz and Mayhem podcast, where we talk about the mayhem in our lives and how to get ahead in business and your career. This is Chris Batchelor, and I'm here with my co-host, Tara Parker. Let's get started. Well, welcome everybody to another show of the Biz and Mayhem podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Tara Parker. Tara, how you doing today? I'm doing fantastic.
I'm always good, Chris. How are you doing?
And we are here again for episode 18, and we are still don't have a declared president yet, so we're in limbo. And there's lots of stuff going on the news, but you never know quite who to believe anymore.
Yeah, there's I don't know. It's what do we? I mean, are you upset at all that Biden is actually kind of starting the transition? He's got his transition team in place. He's got people he's starting to call for certain, his cabinet members, his administration. How do you feel about that? Because I've heard rhetoric on different wavelengths saying that's too soon. We don't know the end results. And I'm kind of like, better safe than sorry. Because if you're announced president, you've got no plan and no team, and you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, I'm not upset about that. I think, if I was in his shoes, I'd probably be doing the same thing, right? I think both sides think they're the rightful winner, and so they're doing things that they would normally do had the outcome already been known at this time. So, and if he was to sit back and not do any of that stuff and is declared the winner, then he doesn't want to be caught a couple months down the road here and not prepared. So,
right.
I'm not against that at all. I think it's fine. I think there's a lot of interesting things happening where they're talking about, if somebody goes on to Biden's cabinet and they vacate a seat, then who's going to fill that seat, and could it possibly flip the balance of power, and all those sorts of things. So, yeah, I think there's lots of interesting stuff going on right now.
Yeah, there is. Have you seen some of the cabinet members he has potentially chosen?
No, I'm actually kind of, I've been so busy lately. I don't want to say I'm boycotting the news, but I really I just honestly have not had time to deal with the news at all. It's like,
that's where I was a few months ago,
yeah.
But I fell off the wagon. I'm back on the news train.
Okay. So
it's been interesting. It's a very diverse cabinet, which you can't really expect anything less from the far left, who are all about diversity, inclusion, and belonging. There is some speculation that some of the choices he's making is that it's being influenced by the BLM. Uh-huh. The BLM are getting involved with this presidential administration one way or another, and so it's just interesting.
Yeah, I did see one new snippet about Harris's seat that it should be filled by somebody who's black. I guess that's BLM now. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what Fox News was reporting as of this morning, is that the BLM is putting a lot of pressure on the governor of California to choose a black person for that role to replace Harris. And so that was, of course, it's Fox News, so they're very much focusing on the negativity of BLM as a Marxist group, and that's what they pride themselves in. And I don't think that's very much of a secret. But it's just kind of like, it goes back to the 80s affirmative action push that was going on at that point in time, where same candidates, but whoever is the minorities who you hire versus who's the absolute most qualified. And so it's, I don't know. I'm glad I don't live in California. I don't know. They're moving out of there anyway. Aren't they going to Texas?
Yeah. Well, they're all leaving California and going to other places. So I don't know. I guess I wouldn't expect anything different, No. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But there's processes for all this stuff, so I think we should let the processes run their course.
And that kind of the very question right now is the process okay? And if it's not okay this time, I'll be honest, it really does make me wonder about the process last time. Obviously it's not working in Trump's favor this time, but it makes me kind of leery about the process. And I've seen a couple of posts from individuals on Facebook. I'm focusing more and more on Parler, but I've seen some people on Facebook saying, if we are this jacked up, I'm never voting again. you guys can just forget it.
Yeah, I mean, who knows who to believe anymore, right? I mean, there's no trusted news source. What are you
No.
going to do? I just, people just are going to believe what they want to believe, and just come to that,
Well,
I mean, you
be
don't.
okay that way, though. Be okay to believe what you want to believe and let people believe
Yeah,
how
but
they want to believe.
I mean, you don't have Walter Cronkite anymore. I mean, he
Right.
was the one of the dudes that everybody kind of, if he said something, it was like, oh, it was real. There was no
Right.
spin.
Integrity.
Yeah, there was integrity, and there's
Yeah.
just not that anymore. And there's no network with I would say integrity. There's a
No,
few
no.
smaller independent places that probably come close, but I think they all have their spin.
Yeah, I think what irritates me the most is, I mean, growing up, were you exposed to the news much growing up? I was, because my parents watched it, and if there only one TV in the house, that is what you watched.
Yeah, I would say not any more than normal.
Right. So we watched a lot of the news growing up in my house, and the one thing I do remember, the news was boring. It was
Hmm.
incredibly
Oh yeah.
boring because there was no emotion, there was no opinion, there was no flavor. It was, these are the facts and just the facts, and that's it. And today, that's not the case. And I would go back to have boring news again. I'm so tired of hearing everybody's opinion. There's a place for opinion. It's called Facebook, and even then they censor you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no sense in beating a dead horse here. We've certainly talked about
Why
that
not?
enough.
Everybody else is. I mean,
Because
don't you want to be one of them?
then we'd be just like everybody else.
Groupthink. Groupthink,
Yeah.
Chris. It's
Don't need
thinning.
we don't need no group think. We
I
need
mean,
you know what we need?
what do we need?
We need the newsroom.
We need the newsroom.
This is the newsroom.
You like how I did that, huh?
You- Trying to get control of this show. It's probably a good thing you're moderating it.
Yeah. So we already kind of beat your first thing here. When will the election be over?
It was a fast, and there's no link because you don't need a link. There's 2 million links out there. Just Google election results and you can have your fill.
Yeah, but the problem is, as soon as this election's over, the next campaign cycle starts. Yeah, I mean, it's already kind of started, right? And so,
Well,
I mean, it's
think I
just
heard
constant now.
Well, I think I heard that if Trump does end up losing, he will run 2024, I think.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, now
I mean,
granted,
that wouldn't surprise me.
well, and I'm going to say this before, and I can't see our Facebook live stream, so somebody may be getting on my case right now for it, but I turn the news, my TV is set to go on at like 4:40 in the morning so I can get up and bike in the morning.
Yeah.
And sometimes I will let myself kind of sleep in a little bit. And I mean, I said it early because I know myself.
Right.
And I could have sworn either I dreamt it or the news it was playing and I could hear it in my sleep that if he doesn't win, then he's just going to run in 2024. And it's like, are you doing that?
Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It's
I mean, would you do anything different if you were him?
Oh, I don't. Well, I guess I thought about that because I don't think anybody else has ran again after losing. They didn't come back 4 years. Like Hillary didn't come back.
Well,
She just let it.
She tried. I mean, she talked about it. But
Well, I mean, the fact that she can't get on a logical platform of anything is the reason why I would never want her in that position.
I mean, the facts here are Trump's getting pretty old. I mean, Biden's
Well,
old. Trump's getting pretty old.
Pelosi's older than both of them. Pelosi's
Yeah, but I
80.
saw a snippet that she's going to be moving out here soon.
Well, it's because she can't win. She's not doing very well, apparently, or something that it doesn't look like she's going to have her seat very long. But she's practically a walking mummy. I mean, look at the woman. If that's, and I guess I mean, I didn't realize it for the last several years. I guess there's been a long running rumor that she's been an alcoholic for numerous years. Which I mean, I could see in her face. She's pretty aged, but
yeah, I mean,
God, there's some really good hair dye in there, though.
Wouldn't surprise me. All right, enough politics. Let's move on. What's this? You got tech taking over the world?
Did you see this?
No, I didn't.
Oh
what
my
is
God,
this?
this is great. Well, you're not in the news anymore, so you're not going to see it. So
I told you, I'm ignoring the news.
Oh, see, this is when I bike to Fox News right now. And so I'm biking 10 to 15 miles a day. So you can imagine I'm spending all that time in front of Fox News. So my brain is probably getting more warped every day.
Right.
But so this thing, it's not showing up on my, I need my thing to work. Anyway, Mark Zuckerberg, how do you say his name?
Zuckerberg.
Thank you.
Zuckerberg.
He and his little pawn over there at Twitter, Dorsey. There it is. There's the link. Read this, guys. They've been brought up for questioning because apparently Facebook has this new little tool that Mark Zuckerberg was not aware of. And if you're the CEO of a major company, specifically a social platform, you should probably know what your people are doing.
Right.
But it's this tool that will literally follow you on the internet, whether you're on Facebook or not. So if any of you, and I know there are several of our listeners out there who have installed some app and it says, hey, do you want to log in? You can log in with your own login, or you can log in with Facebook or Google or whatever. And a lot of people will choose Facebook because it's just easier. And then you can automatically post from one app, like a Strava app or, a beauty app or workout app or whatever, directly to Facebook with whatever you're working on, your gaming app. As it turns out, those little links there, and this is the dumbed down version. So all you IT people out there, do not email me about this. I already know I don't know what I'm talking about. But those links are allowing Facebook to follow you on the web, even when you're not on Facebook. And most of us don't log out of Facebook.
Yeah,
right?
No, I mean, this is the tracking stuff happens all day, every day on every app that you use. It's not just Facebook. Anything you do on the web is being hoovered up, and it's not just the web. Anything you do on your phone, anything you do on any device that's connected to the internet, on Facebook, it's all being hoovered up into databases and being sold as advertising data.
Well, it went a different route, though. They went into a censorship route. So they are finding out what you're saying on other sites, what you're doing on other sites, and then they're taking that information and then using that for their censorship platforms, their censorship campaigns that they've been on. Because that's one thing that both Twitter and the CEO of Twitter and Facebook took a lot of heat for on Capitol Hill, was that you guys are censoring, but you're only censoring one side. Right. Why aren't you censoring anybody else? Why are you focusing on these people and these particular voices? And so that's what, and it was funny because Mark Zuckerberg, and he kind of looked like that serial killer mugshot look. Every time they take a still of him, it always looks really, really bad. Like the dude has no eyebrows. Yeah. He's got this pasty skin with some freckles and some blonde hair that disappears. And he just kind of looks like, I'm not familiar with that tool.
Yeah.
I call shenanigans. And that's not the SH word I want to use.
The higher ups probably don't know the details. I'm probably.
But he knows the name of it. He knows what tools are out there. Like, he's not dumb.
No, I think, any day, if you're a digital citizen, which, most of the people are, and certainly if you're listening to this podcast, you're a digital citizen, because we we broadcast on Facebook, and we post to YouTube, and we have our podcast that we sling out over Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those other places. I mean, if you're on the web, on the internet in any way, which means a website, a browser, a phone, an app, that sort of thing. I mean, your data is being sucked up, and
it's monitored.
There's very little oversight in how that data is used. And now there's been some discussions, particularly in the EU, about, do you own your data? Can you tell Facebook to erase their data that's associated with you, right? And so this stuff is still evolving. The rules have not caught up with technology, and it probably won't for a very long time. So it's really kind of a Wild West. And we all know that, the big tech giants pretty much do whatever they want to. There's really no... there's no, I mean, they get fined here and there, but the fines they get are not, significant enough to be crippling.
They're not influential enough at all, no.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too with Facebook, and I don't think many people knew this, especially right up front. It took years for people to understand you own nothing that you post on Facebook. So any original work, any pictures, any talent that you're sharing, any proprietary knowledge, intellectual property, everything you put on Facebook, Facebook owns. And I don't think people understand.
It's not so much that Facebook owns it; it becomes part of the public domain. So,
unless they change their rules and regulations, and they could have, considering how many times
they can write whatever they want into the EULA. Whatever stands up in court is something different, right?
Right.
I mean, you can write into a EULA that they own the earth and the rocks and the sky, but that doesn't mean that they can actually do that. I mean,
we're now the proprietary owners of the earth, just so we're all clear.
But here's the thing that you need to know, right? If you use something and it does not cost you physical money to get to it, I mean, you use Facebook. Facebook is free, so you are the product. Your data is the product that Facebook is selling. And they sell advertising, and they sell all sorts of other stuff that they do with your data, and they make money off of it, and that's how they keep the site going, right? So, I mean, if you paid $20 a month to use Facebook, I think people would have a lot more ground to stand on. Now, I'm not saying what they do is right. I'm just saying that, if if you use something for free, don't be surprised when they are monetizing your information or monetizing you in some way down the road.
Right.
It's
No,
just that simple. It's
I still won't.
economics.
I still won't post anything on there directly. All my stuff comes out of my website or somewhere else just to protect myself.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of it's a relatively new thing in the world. I mean, newspapers were around for a long time, and they were printed on hard media, and there was, only certain ways you could get them around by physically moving them.
yeah,
Now that we're in the digital age, things are changing.
they are, and I don't like all of them. I don't think all of us like all of them. I mean,
Well, you may not
need to
like it, but that's the way it
I
is, right?
know.
I mean,
Yes, I
you don't really
agree.
have any
But if
any
we're gonna if we're not gonna like it, dislike it, at least let everybody have their say versus silencing some specific people. Like just let it all,
yeah.
let the good, bad, and the ugly
Oh,
all be out there.
so that's the other big, argument here, right? Is does Facebook have a right to censor an opinion that they don't like? Never mind an opinion that may be false, right?
Right.
Because the fact checker thing is all can be very subjective, right? Is something true? Is it
Yeah.
false? Is it partly true? I mean, it's just a mess. And
Yep.
when you start censoring like that, you no longer become a platform, you become a publisher, which means you are now responsible for the content that is on your site. When you're a platform, the difference is they can just say, well, we're just a platform. The person that published it is responsible for it. When you
Hmm.
start censoring the data, you become responsible for that content, right? And so that's
Yes.
the big argument here is Facebook and Twitter and all those sites, are they platforms or are they publishers? Because they quite frankly get away with a lot of stuff being a platform, because then they can blame the people that are posting. They posted that Antifa stuff or that Nazi stuff, but it wasn't Facebook that posted it. It was that person, right?
Yeah, but I
Um,
mean, I see where you're going with that. I do, but at the same time, I'm not seeing an equal or not equal. I don't like that word. I don't see a balance between sides. Like I'm seeing a lot, like on Twitter, they're banning 90% of what Trump is saying on there,
but
and it's
yeah,
mostly Trump's opinion. I
right.
mean,
All right. So let's take that one step further. So Twitter is a private entity, right?
it's publicly traded.
It's publicly traded, so they may have some rules that they have to follow. But in the end of
Right.
the day, it's owned by a private collective group of people.
Okay.
True or false?
I would think true. Somebody owns
Okay.
it.
So but Twitter and Facebook are not government entities, right?
No.
They are absolutely
Well,
not government
they're not
entities.
owned by the government. Are they influenced by the government? But I see
No,
where you're
no,
going.
no. What I'm saying is, if they were a pure government entity, if it was the Bureau of Facebook, whatever, then you had bureaucrats and they were elected officials and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
then yes, they would absolutely have to abide by, well, we're going to make this fair and we're going to monitor each side equally, right?
Right.
And that's what happens in a kind of, rainbow and, unicorn farts world, right? I mean, but
Right.
we all know that even governments don't act like that, right? But
Yeah.
Twitter and Facebook are in themselves private entities that may have to abide by some rules because they are publicly traded. But at the end of the day, they're a private entity. So, I mean, they can basically do whatever they want to. Now, whether we like that or not, that's a whole different thing,
But
I
can
think.
they can and see, and I agree with you that businesses should be able to operate they want to operate, which means that Colorado case a few years back where the two gay dudes walked into the cake place and wanted a cake made, and the owner said, "Nope, not our problem, get out." And there was a place down the street that was happy to make the cake for them, but those
Right.
people wanted that cake from that. And it wasn't anything specific about the cake. It wasn't anything specialized. It was the sheer principle of the matter. I do
Right.
agree that those business owners have the right to say no. I don't want your business. That's what that Best Buy was like. Get out if you're not going to wear a mask. Get out. We don't want you here. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
So
But
it
when you start
does.
censoring, go ahead.
So I mean, it does get into that whole argument of what are the limits of what a private entity can and cannot do, right? And
Yeah,
that whole thing, if I remember correctly, went to court and it went to a trial and all this
it
kind of
was
stuff.
huge.
I
Well, but
mean,
when you're talking about you're a Facebook, which is a social platform of communication, and that goes back to is it? I always confuse my amendments, so help me out here. This is the Second Amendment, First Amendment. Which one's the freedom of speech?
First Amendment.
I mean, I know it's there. I just don't know which one it is. Oh God, I hope Bo's not listening. He's gonna be rolling his eyes at me.
We're gonna get some comments on that one. So direct your hate mail at Tara at Busy. No, I'm kidding.
Oh God.
Yes, we'll be having Constitution Amendment School next Saturday at 8 a.m.
Jim, I will just go read the damn Constitution. Jim, no, I'll just read it. I have it. It's been gifted. It was gifted to me in a pamphlet form. Thank you. But I get that we've got the right to say what we want to say, which means we're going to hear some crap we don't want to hear. We're going to hear things we don't like. We're going to the good, the bad, the ugly. It's all wrapped up into that First Amendment. So when you are a platform that specializes in communication, does that where that's a fine line, don't you think?
Oh, it's a very fine line. I mean, there was an article that I read last week, I think, that was talking about how the suppression of Hunter Biden and his story before the election has really swayed the election, because they were saying there are a great number of Democratic voters that didn't know about the scandal, and that had a small portion of them change their vote. That would have been enough to swing the election, because this election was so close. And so my question is now, does the government go back to Facebook and Twitter, and do they get them for collusion or for election interference? Does people go to jail? Or there fines? I mean, all this kind of thing should happen, post this election. We all know it's not going to happen, right? There's really very little accountability left in the world.
Right,
but
right.
I think what you're going to see is ultimately people are going to get tired of it, and they're either the free market's going to take over, and people will just leave the platforms, and the platforms are only strong when they have participants, right? Because a platform with no participants is nothing. And so I think you'll either see people will leave the platforms or they'll get regulated. And the reality is probably somewhere in the middle will happen. You'll have some portion of the user base that leaves, and you'll get some regulation on the other side. So, we'll see where it spreads out to, where it lands. But it's all, for something that started out as, hey, I'm just going to share pictures, or, hey, here's what happened to me in 140 characters. We've gotten way far away from this. And I think it's because, it's really people's main form of news these days, right?
Sadly, yeah. I think you're right. I think people would rather go to a social platform to get their news and information, or follow certain people. Kirstie Alley is a Wichita native. She's huge on Twitter. Right. People follow her. She's a Scientologist. She probably would have been seen as a liberal unless you started following her these last few months. And she's been Team Trump the entire time, which I think there's also another fine line between Team Trump and Team Anti-Biden.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's several fractions in this country right now, and they're all over the spectrum. But, the reality is there's no good middle choice. And there hasn't been for a long time. And there probably, I think there should, but I don't think that you could get somebody who's a moderate to get any airtime. And because of that, I don't think you're going to get somebody that has the publicity needed to get over the line.
So do you think maybe, how some other elections operate where you vote for each individual position? Now, not to say we need a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. Obviously, we have some seats that are some positions rather that are already established. But does it make better sense, or would it add to confusion if we got to vote for those positions independently versus an entire ticket?
I don't know. Every time we talk about changing the system, there's a lot of implications, right? Anytime you make one little change, it's domino effect over here kind of thing. So I don't know. I mean, that goes back to the Electoral College. Every time somebody talks about changing the Electoral College, it's like, well, you don't really understand that, if you do that, then everybody's vote in the middle of the country doesn't count, right? Because they're going to be outnumbered so badly. And people forget too that we are one country of many states, and the states have a pretty large amount of power, and the power of the federal government is supposed to be limited. Now, that's one of the big fights between the left and the right, is that the left wants massive government. They want the government to do everything the right's like, no, we want limited government, which means the states have more of a role in doing things, and so that's part of the balance of power here, I think.
Right. No,
So
it's
yeah,
where's the
it's
right
a
answer,
mess.
Chris? Where's the right answer? We
You
need to
know,
need an
I don't
answer.
know. Yeah, I mean, the part that upsets me is the people that are mad at Trump that have just ignored everything that is not so great about the left, and they're looking at the left as this sort of savior. They're going to come in and change everything because everything they do is much better. And and then the people that really irritate me are the ones that go, well, Trump's a liar. Well, good. Name me any politician at
It's
the
not
national level that in the last 25 years that you can't write an expose about all the stuff they lied about.
right.
I mean,
Right.
there are some that are more truthful than others, but
Yep.
in general, I think lying goes with politics, as sad as it is. And I'm not saying that's right, because
No,
it's not. But
it's expected.
there really just is no there's no accountability, and without accountability, people can say whatever they want to say, and it's okay. But until we start having that accountability piece, then we're just going to get the same results. So to me, if we're going to really change politics, we need to start having accountability, and we need to start having limited government. There's no reason that somebody should be in politics for 47 years and be a billionaire like Joe Biden is.
How does that work? It should be
well,
shouldn't that be a free, like almost a like you should have another job. Like you should
I
not be
mean,
making money
it
off the
started,
taxpayer.
if you go back to the beginning of this country, stuff like Congress started out as a volunteer-ish job,
Yes.
and they left because they had to go back and take care of their businesses or their land or whatever, and so I'm not saying everything about the beginning of this country is correct, because there obviously were a lot of wrongs, but
Right.
the original intent of our government was not to have this massive government that is career politicians that make millions of dollars. Their base salary is 100 and something grand, but they're really
100 and
making
something grand.
millions of dollars a year off of side business deals and
Right.
all this kind of stuff. So I think if you were to really dig into corruption and really dig into accountability in politics, you would find it's very, very not something you want to look at.
Corrupt.
So
Corrupt. Jessica Hoyt is one of Jessica Hoyt's
Yeah.
listening right now. She says, "Yeah, they're all
they're
liars.
all liars.
100%."
But
Yes, Jessica.
and part of it, I think too, is yes, I think so. This goes back to, if you're going to be in politics these days, you have to be a narcissist. I keep saying that over and over again. And
Yeah,
my
you
theory there is because narcissists are the only ones in our society that are willing to go on TV and get the crap beat out of them in the media over every little thing they say. And until the media starts acting fair with people, we will not get non-personality disordered people into politics, because the only ones that are going to want to be in politics are the ones that are personality disordered.
Well, they feed
And-
off that
and
negativity. That's what gives them that
they
drive
do.
and that push
And-
and
and
that
I'm-
let me show
I'm not-
you type of defiancy.
Right. And I'm not so much talking here about the ones that are at the state level, because I think that's a different dynamic. I'm talking about the national level politics here. The ones that are on national TV that have, federal level positions.
Right.
I mean, and they're obviously not all bad, but here's the other thing too. You could be a completely normal person and not a liar at all, and the media will turn something around that you said to make you look like a liar. And
Yes.
so, like I said, it's very much, everything is under a microscope. And I think just normal people just don't want to deal with that. I mean, why
Well,
would they, for the little
yeah,
amount of
well-
money that we pay? I mean, if you were to go into
Yeah.
politics and be honest, you would not make much money, because you're going to be traveling your butt off, going back and forth to DC and back to
Well,
where you live.
You deal
right?
with the abuse of people.
You have to
Yeah,
deal with the
because
abuse of people. You have to have 2 residences. I mean, there's not a lot of great stuff about it, if you factor out the fact that you're probably going to get these sideline deals and make millions of dollars off of other stuff, right? So
Right.
I don't know. Politics is just, it's one of those things where it's I don't know.
Not for me.
It's sad in some ways, and in other ways, I'm like, yeah, I can totally see how we got there. So
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I'm over it.
yep. So I think a lot of people are. That's why I have the next thing, which is kind of fun.
Right. What is this? What
So
did you
this is I'll go over here to
It's
my thing
link.
here.
Yeah, I want to see this. I didn't take a. I just saw
So
it.
this
It's like,
is
what?
over in Germany, they're filming the next installment of The Matrix. Do you remember that movie from
They
like way
are
back
not.
when? They are.
Like a German
It's
version or the US
no,
follow-up?
it's the U.S. follow up. I think they're just filming it in
Don't we have
Germany.
enough of those?
So yeah, I mean, what is this? Four, three,
I,
four?
I
I don't
don't.
even know.
I
So,
lost track after they called us batteries. And
but
I mean,
yeah, so Keanu's part of it, right? He's
of course.
Keanu Reeves. He's awesome. I love him and
I
John
love
Wick,
him
and
too, but God dang it,
so
Jason D. Armond out there is one of my very best friends. Adore him. When somebody compared him to freaking Keanu Reeves, I lost my childhood crush on him. Thanks a lot.
well. So anyhow, they're filming The Matrix, right? And of course, Germany has very strict rules over, how many people you can have in a gathering and mass, and I mean, they're much more strict. It sounds like than we are here
Right.
in the States. And so they decided to pull a sneaky one. So they decided to have. So they're getting around in the movie shoot. They have permits to be able to have more than 50 people or whatever it is, because they're filming the movie, and they got special permits, and they do special things to make sure everybody's tested regularly, and all this kind of stuff. So the German government kind of gave them a pass, right?
Right.
But not so much for. Having a party. So what they did was they said they told everybody they were having a filming. They're going to film. So everybody show up at like whatever it is, 8 o'clock at night, and we're going to film this party. And some of the people on the cast, apparently, obviously not the very high up people on the cast, told the German media that, well, yeah, they called it a shoot, but there were no cameras there, there was no sound guys there. There were no clapper boards there. They really just had a party, and they called it a video. They called it a movie shoot. And so
Right.
now the German government is all investigating this, and they shutting them down and having all sorts of issues. So
Oh my
yeah, so
gosh.
they
Talk about a cat and laser.
tried to get creative with the terms there to kind of get around some of the things, and I guess
That's
Keanu
awesome.
showed up, in the beginning, and then he left kind of early, and so, but yeah, apparently there was a DJ and the whole 9 yards. So,
So we're gonna see the Matrix party. Is that what we're gonna see? That's
I
Matrix 4 is the party.
I'm hoping
The,
that there's a party in the new one just so I can
the
go
last
watch it.
call.
Yeah,
Matrix, the last call.
right. So I don't know. I mean, the Matrix, the first one was awesome, and then they got they're like all sequels, and they're never as good as the first one. So, but it would be kind of neat to see a reprise of that.
I don't know. It wasn't, I need to watch it as a more of an adult because it wasn't my thing when I watched it the first. I mean, I'm like I said, huge Keanu Reeves fan, love all of his
Yeah.
work, but that was one of the ones it just was a different role for him. So it's harder for me to get into. Plus, understanding it, the whole human battery thing, just my brain was like, huh, what?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
get it. But he's cute.
It's kind of an abstract thing, but Keanu's turned out to be a fantastic action actor. I mean, if you watch any of the behind the scenes stuff with John Wick, I mean, it's incredible
That's
how much he is
he's so awesome
practiced for
in
that.
his
And
movies.
yeah, I
So
mean, he's a good dude all around. I've read some stuff about him where
yeah.
people have kind of met him out in the wild, and they were just pretty impressed with he seems to be a pretty humble guy. He's not the typical
Right.
Hollywood
So
type,
I don't
so.
have you heard of like that hall pass list that some couples will have where that if I met this Hollywood star, I get one night with them, no questions asked.
Right.
So I don't have that. Like I didn't realize that was an actual thing. Like people actually
Right.
think like, they actually have this list and they have a person, like one specific person. So
Yeah.
I know Bo was telling me one day, he's like, yeah, I have somebody. I'm like, who the hell? He's like, well, don't you? I'm like, no. He's like, you mean Keanu Reeves isn't your guy? I'm like, I don't know the dude to sleep with him. No. Who does that? He's like, I'm just saying
Yeah.
if Elizabeth Hurley shows up at my front door, I'm not saying no. I'm like, then we're gonna have to have some serious conversations because I'm not sure how like this is like you guys
Yeah.
honestly believe but I've heard the same like you. He's just real down to earth, real easy
Mm-hmm.
going. And that's one of the things that's like you can't sleep with that kind of guy. It like ruins it. You gotta you
Yeah.
leave the unicorn alone.
Ruins
You
the
study
patine for
it.
you, huh?
Well, yeah, the hot chick matrix, you take the unicorn and you just study it and you try
Just
to how to replicate it. And it's pretty
Yeah.
and that's it. And you don't screw with it. Leave it alone. Don't sleep with it. Don't
Just
muck it up.
leave good enough alone.
Yes, he's awesome. Don't touch him.
Well, with that, I think we should move on to
We
our
should-
career workout.
It's time to work that career and lift and push and lift and push. You got it. Now harder, lift, and push. It's the career workout.
Every time I giggle at that one, you crack
I
me up.
had fun making it. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh, why did I do that? That's so dumb.
I love it. It's
so
awesome.
dumb. If you're
It's so
listening, let us know in the comments if you think that's dumb or if we should keep it.
Be careful
Have
what you ask for, Chris.
Have a vote right here.
86 it, or do we just keep going? What do we do?
I don't know.
Oh, you got the article to pull up?
I do. So in career workout, we have 3 simple ways to be more influential at work.
Yeah. So recently, I'm always influenced by something I hear at work. And so here recently, I'd heard a few of my coworkers were talking about how they don't feel they're taken seriously at work. They said that, and these are guys that are just kind of starting their careers out there. They're not fresh out of college, but they've been out for a few. They're kind of establishing their career legs and things like that. And they were kind of venting and talking about how, well, if I say this specific idea, it kind of is ignored, but later on when my manager says it, it's the best thing since sliced bread. What is going on? Why am I not important? Is it because I'm a peon? And I thought, no, you just don't have the influence. And so I enjoy the people that I work with, but I'm considerably older than some of those that I work with. So I'm considerably cognizant of staying the hell out of some of my conversations.
Right. Yeah.
They need to grow and they need to develop and they need to build, and I need to give them that space. And so this particular article, where'd I put it? You have to put it on screen for me. It's not showing up. It's not working.
All right, I can do that.
I'd appreciate it. That'd be great. So, yeah, you have to scroll up. I don't have any control. You have all the control.
I have all the control. So the first one is influence by educating. I call this planting the seed.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's also, it's like your fact checker. This is fact finding. If you want to influence somebody, you want to get their attention, you want to turn them on to an idea. You don't use your whole, I feel like, don't ever start a statement like that. You're going to, immediately your managers are going to turn off to you because that's an emotional statement. You start off with data says, our past experiences say this. You educate your audience by giving facts. There's a lot of power when you say, we're not getting the attention to this side because this isn't attractive and our customers want to see this. And so you get the data, you get the education, you get the information. And that's one of the ways you present an idea to somebody is, I have this idea and I have this idea because, and it's basically knowing your why. And we've said that on this show multiple times. I'm a big believer in that. And so that's the one thing I hear in these conversations that I mentioned with these younger folks is that they always say, I have an idea, but they never mention why they had the idea.
Right.
What prompted them? It's, is it just one of those brain busts that's like, oh, I've had an epiphany and here it is. Those are nice, but those are what should be driving you to do a little bit of research, do a little bit of work and figure out why is this going to be a good idea and why should somebody buy it? Because that's what you're doing is when you tell your boss an idea, you're trying to sell them something. Yeah. And if you look at it like that, look back at how people have sold you stuff. They sell you things with information, facts, details. Sometimes emotions are used. I recently bought a security system. It was under not emotional duress, but definitely some emotional influence.
Right.
So, but I wanted to be a little bit smart about it. I wanted to know some data. How can the system be hacked? How many people are using the system? How many people in my area? And because I knew enough people in my immediate area, it's like, you know what, the system might work for me. It was the education behind it that influenced me to make the decision to buy. It was it's a $300 some odd purchase. So I didn't want to make that stupidly. So, and your managers feel the same way. They're not going to make stupid decisions because they have to account for those to the next level up. Your managers have to know why they're making a decision. They have to explain either themselves or you to other people. So don't go in empty-handed, go in guns blazing. Know your why when you start talking about things like that. When we start trying to get decisions through. Yeah, there you go.
The next one is here, influence through feedback.
Feedback's scary. People don't like feedback. It's so scary. You don't want to hear bad things about you. You don't want to hear it at all. You don't want to know bad things. Everything is unicorns and rainbows. But feedback is a gift.
It is,
and it is now. Those of you who are not managers feel like feedback is not a good thing. You don't want feedback unless it's something very positive. But I'm one of those. I want to know. I've told my bosses the last several years, tell me when I'm screwing up. Tell me when I need to do better. I probably know it. So I probably need to keep working on it. But when you share that feedback with others, especially your management, saying, we've heard from our customers, we've heard from the team is saying, but be specific. Don't just say they're all pissed off.
Right.
It needs to be, this specific event happened. This was the results and why their response to it. And this is how we fixed it. But because of all of this, we need to look at this possible new direction.
Yeah.
So the feedback is super important. Again, it's a form of education, but it's real live experiences, and that can hurt a bottom line or it can build the bottom line. And managers are really interested in that. Upper leadership is really interested in that. So always keep that in mind. Always get feedback, even if it's good, bad, or ugly. It doesn't matter. I've received ugly feedback before. I received weird feedback before. I had one boss tell me he wanted to give me a perfect review, but he couldn't because he just didn't give perfect reviews. He had to find something wrong. So he said, "You're late to meetings." I'm like, "But I'm never late to meetings." He's like, "I know, but we're going to say you are, so I can't give a perfect review." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
You gotta love that, right?
No,
Your rating system is 1 point less.
well, I wanted to throat punch him before throat punching was a thing. And if you're listening, mister, you know who you are because you're on my friends list. So yeah, feedback, accept it.
If you're that person, throw us a note in the comment here.
Yeah, out yourself for me. That'd be great. Can I do it for
That's
you?
Right. We'll bring you on the next time for the podcast.
He probably doesn't remember. The thing is, I worked so hard for him. He's probably like, "Oh my God, I don't even remember saying that." I wish he'd speak up, but I doubt he is. Influence by example. So monkey see, monkey do. This is exactly what that is. If you are not willing to take on the idea that you're presenting, don't even bother presenting it. If you're not willing to make the change, don't offer the change. If you cannot lead by example, if you cannot provide by example, then do not expect your manager to do the same thing. But your manager is also another form of example. So you're getting influence from your manager by example too. So this is a two-way street for sure. And I know, Chris, you've got a team. You could probably speak to this significantly more than I could at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think leading by example is important, whether you're an individual contributor or whether you're a manager. I think it goes up and down the chain. I think it's particularly important for senior level management to lead by example. I think nothing ruins the morale of a corporation faster than seeing senior level managers have privileges or do things that they wouldn't allow their folks under them to do.
Right.
And particularly, you have to remember today in the age of all things electronic, news travels fast. So,
Yes,
if you're anywhere where there's any sort of camera or cell phone or any sort of recording device, you just got to assume that you're being watched and you're in the public eye,
Yeah.
So I think it's, just be honest and, and do the right thing and be transparent. But, you certainly have to lead by example. It's so important these days.
Have you found that to be difficult on some days more than others, especially with this past year?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think, the people that are honest and good are going to be honest and good, and the people that need to cheat to get by are going to cheat to get by, and they're going to cheat even when they don't have to. That's been my experience in life. It's for some people it's just a way of life, and that's the only way they know how to do things. And so, I don't know. I think certainly you need to be cognizant of what you're doing and the example that you're setting. I guess I'll leave it at that.
I'd agree with that. I would agree. So yeah, learn how to influence. It's difficult, but it's attainable. You can do it. But don't just I feel like no. Stop it.
All right. Stop. And now it's time for career fail.
Failure.
Career fail of the week.
All right, so for career fail, what have we got here?
We have, and actually this link did work for me, thankfully. 3 questions to ask yourself if you're worried you're making the wrong career move. So obviously with COVID and, well, just COVID, there's probably been some opportunity to, possibly make some career jumps, or I know I made a jump in my own career. And so you kind of have to wonder if you're making the right decision at the right time. I'm sure there's some of you out there who feel like this opportunity was presented to you and it sounded great, it looked great, it felt great. You get in there and you're like, wait a moment here, this didn't fit like the glove at the OJ Simpson trial. Something's wrong. This just doesn't, something's off. It's a
Yeah.
little less breathing room than I thought I had, or doesn't
Mm-hmm.
fulfill that need or serve that purpose. And so you kind of have to look at a couple of different things when you are having those feelings, especially during times like this, or when you do want to make a move. I know I have a very diverse background, professionally speaking. Chris, I think you have a very specialized background. And so I think there's a couple different ways to look at how you make career moves and what decisions you're making in your career to keep it going forward. No, I don't know. As far as the specialization, Chris, do you feel like you're a little more protected in some of your decisions that you make in terms of your career because you are so specialized?
So first, I want to ask you, what's this word you said? Forward? What does that mean in context of a career?
Do
Uh,
what?
Forward. The word forward. It's
Forward.
very foreign to me. I don't really understand it. What is it? I don't know what you're talking about.
Moving forward.
No, it's, I totally joke, but I always tell, new folks that come into my organization that are young and new and just out of college, and my spiel to them is kind of like, look, when I was younger, I had this kind of linear interpretation of my career in my head. I was like, I'm going to go from A to B and then to C and to D, and it was kind of like, I'm going to climb this hill or this ladder, whatever your picture representation is.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if I was to give a 5-year-old 3 crayons and tell him to draw a bunch of squiggly lines, that would be a much more accurate representation of what my career has actually looked like. And that's not a bad thing. It's just all over the place, I
No,
mean,
you're not as specialized as I thought. You're just as jacked up as the rest of us.
I mean, I've certainly I've done a lot of different things, which is a blessing. I've gotten a lot of opportunities. I've seeked out a lot of opportunities, and I've taken opportunities that I've regretted. Right.
Right.
But the trick is to do the best that you can while you're there, and then try and move on as quick as you can. Right.
Right.
And I think as certainly as you get older and you get more established in your career, it's harder to make a major change from what you're doing, and that's, I think, largely though dependent on your organization and how many opportunities there are within the organization, how diverse your organization is. The company that we work for has major different kinds of companies all over the world, so I mean, if you wanted to, you could move and take positions in many different industries. Some people at smaller companies may not have that opportunity unless they leave that company. And yeah, I think just remember every decision you make is half chance, right? So I
Right.
mean, that's something my dad told me way back in the day, and it's always stuck with me. And he's been right. You make a decision based on the information that you have available to you at that time, and you try and make the best decision you can with the information that you have available.
Right.
The other half of that really is just luck of the draw, so some stuff works out and some stuff doesn't.
Yep.
And you kind of learn, and maybe you interpret the data differently the next time around. But, I think it can be very anxiety provoking to change what job you're doing, because a lot of times what job you're doing is very comfortable. You know what to do, you're kind of established. Going into a new position, you've got new people, you've got new processes,
Right.
all that kind of thing. So I think that can be very nerve wracking. But, ultimately, you have to decide what's good for you, what's good for your family, what's good for your overall work-life balance, and take all that data and make a decision based on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think hopefully all of us would agree with that, rationally speaking.
Right? I don't know. I think you can't get too stuck on it, though, right?
No, and like I said, I have a much more diverse background, and I mean, I've not been in one single area or one single specialization. It could probably be rolled up into one area,
Mm-hmm.
but the organizations I have worked for have been very diverse, and so
Right.
some of the decisions I've made have been based on, I think I feel like I have a little bit more wider area to work with if I start looking for employment where, some people may feel like they're stuck.
Yeah.
And that tends to kind of drive, well, I'm stuck here and I hate coming here and I'm never going to get a new opportunity. And And that's kind of the down part of a specialization until you started speaking. I realized, you're just as screwed as we are.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think the difference now is earlier in my career, I would have had one resume, whereas now, if I was to go out looking for a job, I'd have probably half a dozen different resumes that were tailored to whatever specific position,
That's awesome.
I was applying for. It's not,
Awesome.
you've got to specialize anymore, because you got to remember when, these recruiters go out and they put a thing out on monster.com or Indeed or, or LinkedIn jobs, and they get applicants, they're going to get hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And, hundreds and hundreds of them are not going to be interesting to them or applicable, right? So they've got to
Right.
sort of weed through the, what's the junk. So if you
Yeah.
don't want to get weeded out as junk, you have to look like you are exactly what they are looking for.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing I think is important to remember when you're looking for a job these days is a lot of times if you're in any sort of specialized field, the recruiters may not be from that field, and they may not know, specific acronyms and things like that. So, I mean, you really have to look at each job and try and write your resume to sort of fit what that
Right.
job description is,
Yeah.
because you're appealing to somebody who probably does not have a big base knowledge in what your expertise is.
I agree. Yep. So
But
that's
and
a
and
lot to consider.
yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
all that being said, 9 times out of 10, it's generally better to know somebody on the inside and have them slip your resume on the top of the pile.
I mean, maybe
you, you
it
know,
doesn't hurt.
but yeah, I think there's still a lot of that going on, and that's.
Yeah, I would say so. And it's not
Mhm.
necessarily a bad thing. I know I've seen where I was part of the hiring process in one of the employers that I worked for, and
Mhm.
it was easier to hire somebody you knew because the personality
Right.
was easier to validate
Yeah.
than a stranger walking in who I mean, especially when you have the social media to fall back on and kind of
Right.
check somebody and troll somebody. There was one individual, going back to the same individual that I just mentioned a few moments ago. We were interviewing for another position, and I was part of the interview process. And this candidate walked in, and they looked great. They
Mhm.
spoke pretty well. They seemed to be on top of it. And for some reason, we're like, yeah, we need more. We
Yeah.
just we need to qualify. We need to validate all that. So we started
Right.
doing. I mean, we're not proud of it, but we social media trolled. That's what
Well,
you.
I think everybody does, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's
This
all
was a few
getting
years earlier before it became
well,
probably an acceptable thing.
it's all getting to know a candidate, right? I mean,
Right. Well, this
there.
is back in the late. I mean, this is 2000. I'm not going to say the year actually because that'll out where I was at, so I'm not going to do that.
Mhm.
But this has been several years ago, and
Somebody's
so
taking notes and building your timeline here.
and it's probably my old boss listening, being like, "Tara, shut up."
Uh
Um,
huh.
and so when we started looking at this candidate and we started finding social media,
Right.
um, well, I say let me reverse that. Let me go back. This candidate didn't come in looking their probable best. We thought they looked okay, and like that's probably how they normally look. Like that's probably just their look. Like it was okay.
Mhm.
It wasn't offensive. It wasn't disheveled. It wasn't anything inappropriate. But we go to the social media and they've got this beautiful headshot, this gorgeous, this handsome, this wonderful headshot that had been professionally done. We're like, why didn't that person come in? Where's
Mhm.
that at?
Yeah.
And so you kind of feel like you have to validate. We didn't know this person. We didn't know anything about them. It was really hard to want to hire them, seeing such a Jekyll and Hyde appearance structure. And so we went with another person we could validate.
Right.
It bit us in the backside later on.
Yeah.
Which
I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to relationships, right? You're going to want to hire somebody that you know and you can trust, and you have a little bit of knowledge of, besides just them showing up to an interview. So I mean,
or somebody that if somebody on your team that knows them. That's
yeah.
another thing too, is if you trust somebody on your team and they say, "Hey, I've got this person I think you need to meet."
Yeah.
That's another big,
Mhm.
which is why, to your point, relationships are really important.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the sense of the article that I presented here today is, when you're trying to make these career decisions, if you feel like you're making the wrong career move, if you don't have the relationships at work, you feel dread when you're going to work, things just they don't feel right, just innately don't feel okay, then
Yeah.
there's probably something not in as much alignment as you thought. Like it's probably time. even if it's a brand new job or you've been in it for years, it's probably something you should reconsider and look at, like what's not hitting on the points you need it to hit on. Or feeling desperate if you're just taking a job to take a job. I did this once. Have you ever done this? You just took a job because you did it?
Yeah, don't do that.
No, don't.
That.
No, I will admit I got something out of that job. And for the folks that are listening that know me, you know what that thing was. So you know what position I'm talking about.
Oh, you're doing that thing where you just talk vaguely. I hate when people do that on social media. And with that, we are going to the IT corner.
Let's talk tech. You're in the IT corner.
Do you remember Monty Python? And now for something completely different.
You should do that more often because that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was
all right. So my completely different thing here is this thing. It is the the Blackmagic Design ATM Mini Pro ISO is the model that I have, and it looks like this black box here. And what this is a camera switcher, and so you can plug your cameras into it and then stream out to the interwebs like we're doing here tonight. So I have my video camera, my cinema camera plugged into this thing, and I've got it hooked up to my laptop, and I'm actually using that as my webcam, and that's how we're doing this whole thing tonight. So this is a piece of kit that's kind of a lot of fun. It's not inexpensive, but in the world of video, it's actually pretty dirt cheap. So this is a great way for you to kind of bump up your presence if you have to use Zoom meetings or whatever. So this is kind of a fun thing to do here.
That's what brings our pretty faces to everybody tonight.
That's right. And so since, you're a lot prettier than I am, I need a better looking camera to, kind of bring it down.
You just need filters. You just need filters. That's all.
We don't have the Snapchat filters here. So
now you've got a challenge. So
right, we got the challenge. But yeah, so this is kind of a fun little box here, though. You plug all your cameras into it. You can switch between the channels. This particular one will actually record the files offline. So I actually got it because I'm getting ready to do some video courses. So I'm going to use this to record the actual courses, and I'm going to have multiple, things going in here. So one of the things going in is my laptop. Then I'm going to have a view from looking overhead so I can explain things, and then a front-on view. So when I'm doing the training, I could just hit the buttons and switch between the cameras. And then the Blackmagic ATM Mini ISO will then record all of those things and give you a file that you can edit later on. So it does a lot of things besides just become kind of a fancy webcam. So pretty neat stuff.
I like it. Here we are.
So we'll have to get you one of these days and get you set up in your home studio.
It'll be a small studio. It won't compare to yours.
Well, I got the gear bug.
And this is your thing. But if we want to talk about like writing, no, you're a writer too, so that doesn't count.
No, I do a little bit of writing. I'm better on the video stuff. What do you say we go to Media Madness?
Yeah.
Welcome to Media Madness.
So what's your Media Madness thing this week?
I don't know. What did I put up there? I bought a book. Who knew?
You did?
What'd
you get?
It was over here somewhere, and I was going to actually post it. Gosh darn it, it was right here. Oh, well. So Travis Barton is in... He and I have a lot in common, though we have never met, and he's not listening tonight. I think he does call himself a life coach. I don't prefer that term, honestly. I like something more like mental trainer, like, the physical trainers out there. I'm more of a mental trainer. But he wrote a book, and he did this book. He published it on his own. He worked with one of those companies that allows you to do all the publishing work. So he actually had to pre-sell so many before it would actually be published. So I actually had this thing bought and paid for like a year ago. Anyway, the book is The Adventure of Purpose. And you can see the link right here. I really don't have to read it to you, but he's had a pretty adventurous life. He's gone to a lot of places. He's gained a lot of perspective from a lot of different angles of the world. And I follow him on Twitter, and I don't remember how I found him. It's probably LinkedIn is probably how I found him, but I follow him on Twitter. And he and I have interacted back and forth, which I love about his kind of person. It's when you, and I have another good friend, and I wish he was listening tonight. He's a writer like I am. We do a lot of collaborative work on a coaching and life site. But when the author that you follow responds to your comment and takes
Oh,
the time
that's
to
awesome.
respond to comments,
Mm-hmm.
I just put my hooks into these people, and because I want to learn from them. I want to sponge off them. I want to be that person. I want to get to where they're at.
I'm
And so,
glad you clarified that,
I
so you
mean,
don't show up in some stalker report later
well,
on.
we're
Now there's
don't
video evidence of it on the
just
interwebs.
don't Google me. It's fine. I mean, whatever you find is a lie. So, but I mean, I followed him. I've been waiting for this book for a year. I wanted to know more about his insight, where he got his insight from. That's what's intriguing to me, is how do you develop your insight? I was every Wednesday night before I come here to record with you, Chris. I meet up with my close girlfriends, and we have our it's just a girl session, just our girl.
Mm-hmm. I've heard they're infamous.
They are great. They are great. I'll tell you where to meet us at in the list close
What
by.
goes? Well, I don't have the right anatomy for that. Don't be
Well,
roping me into.
I mean, none of the people who hear us have the right anatomy for that. And so, oh, hold
When
on.
you
Hi,
when
David.
you
I
say,
see you.
hey David,
Hey,
when you
David.
when you say it's a girls' night and you start inviting me out to that, I kind of
You don't
wonder,
want to sit with us. Trust
does
me. If you,
she know that I'm not a girl?
oh, you're not? Oh, crap.
No.
Sorry.
I know I
No.
need to lose weight, but come on, killing me.
Oh, Morty, you better be careful. You're all right. To send
Uh-huh.
your email.
All right, let's talk about your book. Sorry, we got off the railroad track there.
So I'm always interested in how people gain the perspectives that I admire. And this guy's perspective, I really admire. That's why I clicked with him and kind of I align with him really well.
Mm-hmm.
I've never met him, and so I'm really anxious to read this book. I'm actually going to read it with a friend of mine. He doesn't know it yet, but I have a friend who has been deployed,
Okay.
and I'm so appreciative of his service to our country. And one of the things we want to keep up with one another is to do kind of a book club thing where we both read the same book and we come back with our thoughts and reflections on it. And this book is on
That's
that
cool.
list. Now I'm going to read it before I read it with him. He doesn't know that,
Uh-huh.
because I'm anxious to read this book. I want to know where this guy. I know how I got my perspectives, and I know where my perspectives came from, and why I have, why I've pursued them the way that I have. I want to know why other
Mm-hmm.
people do. That's what intrigues me, is if somebody can think like I do. I
Right.
want to know what brought them to that point, because it's such a unusual road to go through. And so I'm
Right.
anxious for this book. So for those of you
Cool.
out there like David who are listening, and Jessica, if you're still listening, which you better be really, you can hook up into this book club with us. It'll be fun. We'll have all kinds of great reflections and sing Kumbaya by. No, we won't. We're going to drink wine and read. That's what we're going to do. That's what we want to do.
So we actually have a Discord server set up because that's the thing for the new kids. So my son set us up a Discord server because that's what they do with the gamers. They all talk on Discord.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll post the link to Discord so we can start interacting with everybody throughout the week here. So
Yes, that'd be awesome.
that's a way to interact without it being totally out on the Facebooks.
Exactly.
So what's the book about? Did I miss that part?
Well, it's really how he came to the perspectives he has, how he came to
Okay.
the processes. It's his adventures have molded his mental framework.
Okay.
And it sounds really deep, but it's not. If you find Travis Barton on LinkedIn, find him on Twitter. I don't know if he has a Facebook page. I've only ever seen him on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just overall accepting. And I'm not a very big believer of unconditional love for all people, or let's love everybody. I'm not that way.
Right.
I am for unconditionally accepting of others. And I think there's
Mm-hmm.
a real big difference there.
Sure.
And this guy, that's where he and I align so well. Because it's really hard for me to find somebody who just unconditionally accepts other people. I don't have to like what they do. It's not about that. I don't have to line up with it. But I'm eager to know and to learn about other people and how they differ from me, because I learn and grow that way. And I think we all do,
Right.
whether we want to admit to it or not. So this book is about his adventures in life and how he's come to be where he's at, and how he came to be this, again, life coach, which again makes me cringe, but
Mm-hmm.
this is his life adventure.
Awesome.
So I'm
Well,
really excited about this
when
one.
you finish reading the book, since you're talking with him, maybe you can get him on the show here.
Ooh, I wonder if I can.
That would be pretty awesome, wouldn't it?
Challenge accepted, because this is up his area. He doesn't want to be Joel Osteen, and I'm not a big fan of him. I'm not a big fan of Tony Robbins. Any guy who says I have your pathway to perfection type of stuff, I immediately hop off his train before I start drinking the Kool-Aid.
You don't like when you walk into a motivational session, they hand you a mirror? Come on. It's like the oldest trick in the book.
Oh my God. Those are the guys
Look
who
into
make
the
me want to drink
mirror.
it to excess. Those are the guys who make me want a hangover the next day. That's what those guys are. That's terrible of me to say, but I'm honest, genuine. That's what it is. So it
Well,
is what it
cool.
is.
You'll have to let us know what you think of the book, and we'll
I
create a
will.
channel on Discord for it so y'all can talk about it.
That'd be
And
awesome.
yeah, I can pretty much guarantee we're not going to get the next guy that I'm going to talk about here in my Media Madness on the show because it is the Mandalorian.
What is this? I heard about this. I
You
heard.
don't? Okay, I don't know if we can
Don't
be
do
friends
that to me.
now.
What it doesn't. Do you want to? God dang it, Jim.
I mean, the Mandalorian. So, are you a Star Wars fan at all?
I do like Star Wars. I haven't kept up with all the new stuff. It's so hard. I
Yeah,
mean,
so there's been a lot of Star Wars stuff, but basically what this is not Star Wars, but it is Star Wars. So this is in the same universe as Star Wars,
but
but
it's like Star Wars, Mandalorian, DeLorean. What was that?
the Mandalorian. Do you
Mandalorian.
know who Boba Fett was in
Boba
this?
Fett.
But yeah, Boba Fett in the
That weird looking guy that looked like an octopus but human walking around.
no, that was
Yes, it was.
Jabba the Hutt.
No, that was the big fat dude. That was from the original
Boba
stuff.
Fett was a guy that was he was a
He had the real
mer-
voice.
he was a mercenary that was coming to kill what's his face, and he ended up dying in the Sarlacc pit. But anyhow, so Boba Fett was a race called the Mandalorian, who's not really one particular race, but it's kind of like a way of life. It's kind of like a samurai becoming
It's
a
a
samurai.
culture.
It's a culture, right?
Hmm.
So the Mandalorians are warriors, and they're basically mercenaries, and they've got this awesome armor. But anyhow, this guy was a bounty hunter, and he goes out to do one of the bounties, and so in the first season, he ends up coming up on what they call the Child, which is also known as Baby Yoda, but you're not supposed to call it
Oh,
Baby Yoda.
what
And
is it? I know
so
it's not
he,
Yoda. What is
so
that
the
thing?
so the Mandalorian, instead of killing Baby Yoda like he was supposed to, he kind of takes Baby Yoda. There's a lot of stuff
He
that
was going to
ensues.
kill the baby Yoda? What
Well, he
kind
was
of
supposed to,
monster?
but then he didn't.
But
So
why would you want to? He's so cute.
because anyhow, you gotta watch it. I'm not gonna explain the whole thing to you. That's like a whole season worth of explaining. I
This
mean
is our
that
relationship, folks. I get Chris to that point, and he's like, "No,
you're just gonna have to buy me dinner at least to get through like the first
I
three
already,
episodes. So
I already owe you a steak dinner, dang it."
or you
So
can just watch it and we can talk about it with you having some knowledge. That would be
I wouldn't
helpful.
want to do that. I want to be ignorant and make you do it.
Well, anyhow, Mandalorian season 2 is out. So they've had the first season. They kind of left it on a cliffhanger. Season 2 picks up. I've only watched the first episode because they only have 3 out right now, and I kind of like to watch them all together. So I'm trying to space it out here a little bit.
Right.
But it's very good. It's not some people complain the more recent Star Wars are kind of like, oh, they're not that good, kind of thing. They're just trying to do Star Wars to do Star Wars. Like the Mandalorian truly is a good story. It's very well written. It's very well filmed. It's just really great to watch overall. So turn off all the election coverage. Go watch The Mandalorian.
But we're
That's
addicted.
my recommendation. And we had a question here. Is it on Netflix? No, it is not on Netflix. It is actually on Disney Plus. So you have to get your Disney Plus subscription or go find somebody who has one to watch it. So, but yeah, it is because Star Wars, remember, is Disney property. So, yeah.
That's right.
The mouse
Good
owns
question,
the Star
David.
Wars. But yeah, great question.
Yep.
But yeah, great show. It's just, like I said, it's really just, it's great visuals, good storyline.
There's a chick from that
Yeah.
show, Gina. Is that her? She's real pretty dark.
Yes.
Pretty chick.
Yes.
She was fired from the show. She's no longer on it. Don't you aren't you missing an actor from that show?
I don't know if she was fired. I think a lot of people are mad at her because she wasn't liberal on Twitter or something.
Actually, that was on Fox News. That's why it sounds so familiar. Yeah, she was actually fired because of
She was.
Yeah. Because she just basically what you said, she's just not liberal enough. Some of her views were voiced, and it was like Roseanne Barr,
Yeah.
but not to that. Now, I don't agree with Roseanne Barr said, but I don't think she should have been fired either. Cancel culture sucks.
Right.
But yeah, it was part of cancel culture. She said something that wasn't okay by certain perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And the show thought they would do better without those ulterior perspectives.
Yeah.
Fox
Well,
reported on. So I don't
We'll
want to
see.
go into
Those
like,
things tend to be short-lived, so we'll see.
can
I
they bring
mean,
her back?
if the fans demand enough, I think they'll bring her
Right.
back.
So did she
So.
die viciously? Can they bring her back?
Oh
Like,
no, she didn't. I don't think she died in the first series. I think she was a fantastic actor too, and a really
oh, she's
good
gorgeous too.
storyline. And
She
oh
looked
yeah,
great.
absolutely gorgeous. And I think in real world she's like an MMA fighter, something like that. So
So cool.
yeah, really cool gal.
That reminds.
Yeah, they'll
I know another MMA fighter locally. We need to have that one on the show because that would be a really cool one to have.
that would be good. But yeah, no, I imagine if enough people yell and scream, they'll bring her back because that's just how people roll these days. But
God, I hope
we'll
so.
see. But the story is kind of shifted. She was from a particular planet, and they're no longer on that planet. So it would kind of not make sense for her to show up at this point. Maybe for her to come back at some point, but they're just not at that portion of the story right now.
Well, all right then.
So yeah,
Sounds good. I'll have to take a look at it. I mean, I'd rather have you just tell it to me because I don't want to do the work myself. Isn't that how the world works today? I don't do my own research. You tell me what to think.
yeah, you go do all the work, and I'll just listen to you. And yeah, that's why we do the show, right?
I mean, it's easier that way.
Well,
Okay.
with that, should we wrap up?
We should. We should. So, we thank you all for listening to this episode of the Biz and Mayhem podcast. If you like the episode, show us a little love, please, by posting a review on iTunes. And don't forget to send us a few bucks on Patreon or PayPal. We will love you forever because it's not cheap to make this podcast. In fact, it's not free. So help us out, right? To get the show notes for this episode, head over to bizandmayhem.com. That's bizandmayhem.com. And look for season 1, episode 18. And then you can subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, have some fun in the mayhem.
All right, we'll see you, everybody.
See you guys.
The Biz and Mayhem podcast is produced by Check 6 Creative Studio. If you have a podcast or been wanting to start one, let us know. We'd love to help you produce and edit your podcast. We'd also love to work with your business on marketing and video production. Visit us on the web at check6studio.com. That's CheckSixstudio.com. Let us know you heard about us on the Biz and Mayhem podcast.